Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about ratios. So let's talk about what a ratio is. By definition, a ratio is just a comparison of two or more numbers. Okay, so here's an example. The ratio of circles to triangles is blank to blank. So if I look at this picture down here and I just count the number of circles, okay, then that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 circles. And then if I count the number of triangles here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I get 5. So I'm just comparing one number to another number, 4 to 5. And you probably hear ratios used maybe more often than you think. If we say like the ratio of teachers to students at school is 1 to 20. Then you probably would recognize that as meaning for one teacher, there are about 20 students. So that's a type of ratio as well. There are 3 ways to write a ratio. One of them is to use the word to, T-O. So for instance, if we were going to write the ratio 4 to 5, it's kind of like it is up here. You would just write 4 to 5 using the word to. Another way you can use, or you can write a ratio is to use a colon. So maybe you've heard of a semicolon. Well, in math we use a colon. That's where you use 2 dots instead of a dot and a comma, like the semicolon. And so you can shorten that, take out the word 2, and just replace it with the colon. 4:5. That is also a way to write a ratio. And if you were just reading this out loud, you would still say 4 to 2. And then the last way, and probably the most common way you're going to see a ratio written, at least for us this year, is as a fraction. And because you can write it as a fraction, it has a lot of the same properties as fractions, so it can be simplified, and we will be simplifying ratios later on. So if I take these same numbers and I want to write it as a fraction, I'm just going to say 4/5. So notice whatever the first word was, circles, okay, went with the first number, and whatever the second word was that you're comparing went with the second number. And you always keep that same order. So circles was first, so the 4 was always first in each category. And then with the fraction, the number for circles goes on top. All right, so let's practice. We're going to write all 3 forms of the given ratios. So we're going to, again, look at this picture up here. We're doing triangles to circles. So triangles to circles. So the first thing I'm going to do is count my triangles again. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles. So I can write 5 here. And then if I count the number of circles, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can compare that to 4. So the first way I can write a ratio is using the word to. So 5 to 4. I can use the colon, so 5:4. Or I can write it as a fraction, so 5/4. Notice this is the same words we used in the example up here, right? Circles to triangles. This is just triangles to circles. But the ratio changed slightly because we switched the order. And the reason we did that is because they listed triangles first. So we want to list the number that goes with triangles first as well. All right, in the second example, we're doing a comparison of squares to triangles. So again, if I look at this picture up here, I have only 1 square. And then if I count the number of triangles again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have 5 triangles. So 1, using the word 5, 1 to 5. Or again, 1:5, or the last way is to write it as a fraction, 1/5. Again, I'm keeping the order consistent with the words. And number 3, circles to total shapes. So for this one, I'm going to count the number of circles. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 circles. I'm going to compare that to the total. So for the total shapes, I need to count all of the shapes, including the circle. It didn't say circles to non-circles. It said total shapes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 4 to 10. And then I can rewrite that with the colon, 4:10. Or 4/10, like this. All right, and number 4, it's the total shapes to triangles. So again, I'm going to use the total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that would be 10, and then 2, and then the number of triangles would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5. So again, total shapes, because the word comes first, the number that goes with that comes first as well. And I'm going to rewrite this as a colon, using a colon, 10 colon 5, and 10 over 5. All right, and number 5, it says, use the table below to write the ratio of students who like green to students who like blue. So in this one, I'm comparing those that like green to those who like blue. And it's going to be really important to watch your words when you're talking about ratios, because that kind of determines the order that you're going to write your ratio in, and then later when we see proportions, it's going to determine how you set up your proportion. So just kind of get used to identifying what's being compared. So in this one, I'm comparing green, those who like green, so that's this one here, to those who like blue, that would be this one here. So the numbers that go with that, since green is listed at first, I'm going to list 6 first. And then I'm going to compare that to blue, which was 4. So green to blue, which was 4. All right, so I can list that using the word 2. I can use that using the colon, and I can list that as a fraction, 6 over 4. Again, if it's first in the ratio, then it's on top of your fraction. Part B says to write the same ratios in simplest forms. So if I go back now, and I haven't been talking about this because I knew it was going to come up later, but look at this fraction, 6 over 4. If I were just looking at this as a fraction, to simplify it, I'm trying to decide, is there a number that divides into both of these numbers? Well, both of these numbers are even, so they're actually both divisible by 2. So if I took 6 over 4 and I divided it by 2 on top and bottom, because whatever I do to the numerator, I do to the denominator, then I would end up with the simplified fraction of 3 over 2. All right, so that 3 and the 2 are what I'm going to use to also write my ratio the 2 other ways, or a total of 3 ways. So instead of saying 6 to 4, now that I've simplified it, I'm going to say 3 to 2. And I'm going to use 3 colon 2. And then again, I'm going to write my fraction as 3 over 2. So all I did was take the same numbers and simplify them. So they're both divisible by 2, and then I rewrote it using the 3 different ways to write a ratio. And the last example we have is write the ratio of students who like red, so that would be this one, to the total number of students as a fraction in simplest form. So the number of students that like red is 2. I'm writing it as a fraction. It says here to write a fraction. All right, to the total, so red to the total number of students. Well, red is easy to find because it tells me what red is, but total is something I'm going to have to find for myself. So again, I'm going to add these up, and I'm including red because it didn't say non-red, it just said total. So if I add 4 plus 2, that's 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. So my total is 12. So I'm comparing 2 to 12, and then because I want to write it in simplest form, I need to see if there's a number that divides into both of these. These are both even, so again, they're both divisible by 2. So that ends up being 1 over 6. So my simplified fraction is 1/6. All right, so just to kind of sum it up, ratios, a way to compare 2 or more numbers. Okay, pay attention to your words, and remember there are 3 ways to write a ratio: using the word 2, using a colon, and then as a fraction. So as a fraction, it can also be simplified. All right, see you soon.